Welcome back to the channel, Today Africa. Today is the 9th March 2023. As I always say, the purpose of this channel is to liberate the minds of Africans across the continent. So that is the main purpose of this channel, and I'll keep doing it until one day we succeed. So I just want to give a quick update about a video I saw on social media about Namibia. These EU leaders that went to Namibia running a campaign to support the war in Ukraine across Africa. So, and in this video, as you guys are watching it, I just want you guys to pick words that are coming from these people, because they are actually certain words. They are coming from these people, which are very technical. So these are the words we should take note of. But I just want you guys to watch the video. Then I will actually pick out these words, and then we debate about it.
President Gangop told the visiting EU commissioners that the impact of the conflict has spared no one, but he cautioned against the use of bilateral and multilateral cooperation as leverage to influence opinions.
Any war is not good. I can tell you that. And we hope that we have a way to end the conflict. It doesn't benefit anybody. People are losing lives, property, and so on, both sides. So therefore, our position as Africans is that we are neutral, but positive in saying no war is good.
From our perspective, we feel very much, that we have to help Ukraine. We have to provide different kind of support, military, financial, humanitarian assistance to them, because we feel that they are not only fighting for their country, but they are fighting for all of us, also for the UN Charter, for the values. But Your Excellency, what I want to underline, and we also had a good discussion and very frank and open discussion on this topic with your Deputy Prime Minister this week, we have not turned our back to the rest of the world, because we fully understand that even though the crisis is taking place in our European soil, the crisis is global. You are facing the consequences of that war in your country because of the food security, because of the energy inflation and so forth. So we just wanted to underline that we fully understand the challenges also the global south, including Namibia, is facing, and we are ready to support you.
Fully understand, as my colleague said, the African position. We know what Macky Sall said, we respect it. My comment is that this war, for what it is accelerating the fact that we in Europe decided that it was important to accelerate the green transition. We had already this framework, but it is true that we didn't start really. My comment was not, I'm African myself, I'm Senegalese.
So as you watch the first speaker there, which is the woman, I don't know whichever position she's holding there. But let us speak from her first statement from our perspective. Okay. So they went to Namibia and trying to convince the prime minister or the president to support their campaign against the war in Ukraine. Okay. But when she used the word from our perspective, that means on the African side, our perspective is not important. From our perspective, their own perspective is important than the African perspective. So that is, they are trying to impose their perspective on the prime minister there. Okay, and then the most important thing here, that I actually caught up with when she says they are fighting for all of us. That is where I have problems with. How is Ukraine fighting for all of us? That is my question. Because This is one thing we have to take note of in Africa, especially leaders and then innocent citizens of Africa. So when she used the word, the Ukrainians are fighting for all of us. Okay, here I come. Because all of us know, you understand, that the Ukrainians are fighting for Ukraine, not for Africans. Okay, so let me break down this fact. Today, there is war going on in Congo. But those Congolese, or wherever that war is, they are not fighting for the whole world. Okay, take note. There is fighting going on in Ethiopia. They are not fighting for the whole world. Okay. And then there was a very bloody war that took place many years ago in Rwanda. They were not fighting for the whole world. Okay. And then take a look again in Sierra Leone. 10 years war. Sierra Leoneans fought the war, but they were not fighting for the whole war, for the whole world. Okay. But today, Ukraine and Russia are fighting. So Ukraine is fighting for the whole world. So that means black lives are not important. So the white man is important because the white man is killing the white man. So that means Ukraine is fighting for Africa. And all of these wars in Africa that I've just outlined, all of these wars are being sponsored by these same people. And in fact, in Rwanda, when this war was going on in Rwanda, many of them in the Western world are saying it's black killing blacks. So that means we are killing ourselves. So it's not important for them to interfere. But today, Ukraine is fighting for the whole world. I wonder how Ukraine is fighting, because in my opinion, even the fight that is going on in Ukraine today, the war is not, Ukraine is not fighting for itself. Ukraine is fighting America's war. We all know that, okay? So let's take again to another point where she says the UN Charter and values, okay? When it comes to Europe, the UN Charter and values, it's very important. But take a look at what happened in Libya. The UN Charter and values never protected Gaddafi and the Libyan people. In fact, it was this same charter that the NATO power used to invade Libya and destroyed Libya. But this same charter, the NATO powers cannot use this to go into Ukraine, because Russia is a country that you can't bully. So just take note of these things. The UN Charter is only protecting the Europeans, not Africans. So you see how the UN is one of the most corrupt organizations or bodies in the world today, because the UN has never stopped a war since the UN started existing. They've never stopped any war. In fact, they are extra arms of America's hegemony. That is the United Nations. But these are things that it is really hard to pick up, especially when we're in Africa, because these are bodies that we in Africa, we respect so much, because when we hear United Nations, so the complexity that, so these are bodies that we actually respect. But behind the scene, there's so much problem. There's so much politics inside the United Nations that is actually destroying Africa. So that is why I always tell people the United Nations is not for Africa, so let us take note of these. The UN Charter protected, the UN Charter and values is protecting the Ukrainians, but not the Russians and not Africans. It's only the Ukrainians, which are the Europeans. Okay. So, and then we take again to the other part where she says, we are facing food security problems and inflation, energy all across the world. Who created these problems? It's not Russia. It's not Africa. So you are the people causing all these problems across the world. But you are going to Africa campaigning that Africa should support you. Okay, who sanctioned Russia? The EU and the United States. Inflation, EU, United States. Energy crisis, EU. Who stopped buying the Russian gas and oil? The EU. So these are problems, you understand? They shoot themselves in the legs. So saying we are facing this problem because of Vladimir Putin, no, that's not his problem. So that is just the strategy they have been using way back to convince Africans to support them in whatever proxy war they are waging. And then the most funny part now, and then this guy came, this so-called Senegalese. I don't know which Senegalese that is holding such a position in the EU leadership, you know. So these are all strategies we should take note of, okay? Then let's take a look again at the most deceiving organizations in Africa today, okay? Let's look at this. All these human rights bodies, human rights organizations all across the world today, these are fake human rights organizations like Amnesty International and all these things. You know, these are fake human rights organizations, because all of these organizations in the whole world today, especially in Africa, Russia and China has nothing to do with them. Do your findings well. They have nothing to do with those bodies. All these organizations are being formed by these Western powers, the collective West, you know. And then those of you that are working in these organizations in Africa, do you know the headquarters of these places, these organizations? No, because these headquarters of most of these organizations you guys work for in Africa, the headquarters is just a single paper on the CIA desk, MI6, maybe George Soros desk, Carl Schwab. So all these organizations, these are the eyes of the Western powers, you know. So that is why wherever you find them, there's always problem on that side. Okay, so let me complete what I'm trying to say. So before I jumped from one chapter to another, let me complete my first statement. So when Africans are fighting, it is not world war. But when Europeans, the white man is fighting the white man, or the white man is killing the white man, it's world war. So you see how they are trying to convince us like we should include and support whatever war they are waging across Europe, that it is world war. But all those wars that are happening in Africa right now, it is not world war. These are just regional conflict. And these regional conflict, they are the ones that creating this regional conflict, like Boko Haram in Nigeria, all these things, you know. So this is not world war. The Ethiopia, Sierra Leone war, Rwanda, this is not world war. But when Ukraine is fighting with Russia, and then when the Western powers, America, want to fight with China, that is the world war. So let's take note and keep an eye on these things. Okay, so these human rights organizations, these are the eyes of the collective West, because all these organizations are representing the EU and the Western powers. So they own all these organizations. So the US aid, do you know how many people in America, homeless people, in America that are actually in need of this US aid? No, but they are not getting it. The US aid and the aid as a whole is all in Africa. Because when they say aid is not a help. It is just a way of, when they take these aids to Africa and go to Africa, and then they see actually the problems that we are facing in Africa, and then they know exactly what to do to increase or to accelerate the problems for us in Africa. So these are some of the reasons why these aids are in Africa. It's not like they are there to help. No, they just want to see, because what they have done, to see the reaction, how it is, where to press, where not to press. So these are the things we face today in Africa. So we should not just be like seeing these foreign NGOs all across Africa. We think they are there to help us. No, they are never there to help Africa, because there is no sustainable development these people will come with to Africa. Because when you look at most of these human rights organizations, these NGOs, when they employ people in Africa, it is always about time frame. Maybe you have 6-month contract, 1-year contract, because they always know when they will achieve their goal. So they'll give you 1-year contract, 6-month contract. It will never be permanent job or sustainable job. It is always based on contract. Ask many people today across Africa that are working with BBC, all these network. None of them will tell you they have 1-year contract or 2 years contract. No, 6 months, 8 months. That's how it is, because they are on a mission. This is the problem. So we have to keep an eye on things like this as well, because when we're in Africa, when we work for such organizations, we are so proud. Like, we are working for BBC, we are working for CNN, and all these sort of things. When I was growing up as a young guy, I ever thought that working with CNN or BBC or all these big media outlets, you have to become a university graduate. You study mass communication, media. No. I got to conclude that to be part of these people, to work at CNN, BBC, you just have to be a professional liar, and how to turn stories in favor of government, because this is where disinformation comes. Because who determines disinformation? Government or the people? When it favors you, the government, it's not disinformation. But when the information does not favor you, then it becomes disinformation. So the people should judge whether this is disinformation or actual information. So you should not judge and delete sense of people across social media when this particular information does not favor you. You see, so these are the problems we have to look at in Africa. And like I always say, the EU, collective West, will never elevate Africa. It is just all to keep us doing something, pretending doing something, but nothing is working. But we are just there. We are not going up. We are not going down. We are just there. So that is the EU for Africa. So we keep an eye on this, as I will come again with another update. So if you like what I'm doing, my work, you can please support this channel by subscribing to this channel and share the video all across social media. And see you on the next video.